I'm really interested to hear about Kimberly's talk on women in marine conservation, and Kimberly's from the JARI Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody, and selamat pagi, Buhani, who's joining us online from Lombok, Indonesia. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay respects to the elders past, present, and future. It's very relevant to this conversation because, as well, Indonesia has their indigenous knowledge that is very important and needs to be put at the forefront of our marine conservation. So my name is Kimberly. I am a New Colombo Plan alumna from the Gold Coast, so the land of the Bajo People. And I was privileged to intern and work with JARI Foundation in Lombok, Indonesia, a couple of years ago. And I'm very privileged to be able to present on behalf of them today and tell you a little bit about the Women in Marine Conservation Group and their work that is happening in Lombok at the moment. So a little bit about myself. On my New Colombo Plan, I had the opportunity to explore the Indo-Pacific and to be able to intern with a couple of groups with marginalised women that, whilst living in the most beautiful and pristine ecosystems around the world, had never been able to get into the water. So seeing those eyes light up when they see the coral reefs for the first time is what inspired me to be here with you today. Similarly, it's the same deal of that light when they see the destruction of dynamite fishing and pollution and just hearing the threats of climate change that may come and destroy those ecosystems with time. So essentially today we're going to start by talking a little bit about JARI Foundation and who we are. Obviously we're not based here, so I just want to let you know a little bit about them and the awesome work that they're doing in Indonesia at the moment. And then go into a little bit about the Women in Marine Conservation Group and the 3 pillars that they stand on. So that's educate, inspire, and empower. And then finally, we're just going to do a little bit of a closing remark to see what that means to our reef resilience and our reefs as a whole. So JARI Foundation, Juang Lestari, means endeavouring for sustainable seas. So this is what they put at the forefront of every single one of the projects that they implement. They're a very small team, a very cute team. We call ourselves a little family, and I was very privileged to be able to work with them and become very close with them while over there. And they continue to do very holistic marine conservation works, focusing not only on marine conservation and restoration projects, but also looking at financing, inclusivity, and obviously looking after our women as well, making sure that they're able to enter the space even though it's incredibly male-dominated. They also work in capacity building and making sure that these communities can sustain themselves. So JARI Foundation has 5 pillars. The first one is education and outreach. They've got research and conservation, marine ecotourism, community development, and partnerships and networking. So with this, there's a very holistic approach to each of the projects that they get to carry out. To start off, we're going to get to know a little bit about the small village of Poto Tano. So as you can see, there's a little map of Indonesia up here, and this tiny, tiny, tiny little spot, Poto Tano, is in the West Sumbawa area. It's located in our West Nusa Tenggara Regency, and it's quite cute. So the Poto Tano area is very rich in history. It houses the descendants of the Bajo People, which are also known as the water nomads, or the people of the sea. This means that it's home to incredible freedivers and a lot of fishing communities. Luckily enough, they haven't been inundated by commercial fisheries, nor have they been discovered by the tourism industry, but they rely on the oceans for sustenance and for income, these families do. There is a total of 8 islands called Gili Balu that surround the Poto Tano Peninsula, and each of them offer a new and pristine ecosystem for these people to look after. So Poto Tano is quite a beautiful place, but unfortunately it does have its downfalls. So there's a lack of waste management in this area, and therefore it's completely inundated by plastic pollution. It also has a history of dynamite fishing. So a lot of these coral reefs and areas have been destroyed by dynamite fishing and there's just dead spots that you can visibly see in the area. Like I said before, I've done a fair bit of travelling, and I've seen a lot of ecosystems and coral reefs in my time. And to be honest with you, these reefs that are around this Poto Tano area are some of the most pristine, vast, and biodiverse that I've ever seen in my life. And so it's just very surprising to know that a lot of the women that I worked with had never ever seen it in their lifetime. JARI Foundation has worked within the Poto Tano area for 3 years prior to developing this Women in Marine Conservation group. They needed this 3 years to be able to foster really deep connections with the fishermen in this area and finally get their support to be able to then work with the women in the community. So the WMC, or Women for Marine Conservation Group, was born out of 3 years of fostering trust with this village. And being able to empower these women to be able to come to the front and actually feel confident enough to learn about our coral reefs when it's technically not their space culturally. But the idea, or this logo, came about at around 9 p.m. at a cafe when I was tasked to create the foundation of this beautiful group. It essentially looks at the 3 main ecosystems in the Gili-Balu area. So it looks at the seagrass beds, the mangrove forests, and the coral reefs, which we all know all depend on each other and all make sure that they work within their piece of the puzzle to be able to be nice and healthy out there. We also found that there was 3 pillars, so educate, inspire, and empower, to form the foundation of every single project that we would then bring to these women and involve them in. I'm going to go into these 3 pillars and what they mean and how we've conducted our projects around them. So firstly, meet the women of the Women Marine Conservation Group. These are incredible women. They have their own lives, they have their own jobs, and their commitments to their families at home. So joining this group outside of their normal lives was incredibly brave, because it's also not a space that is welcoming for women. These ladies were very curious and very dedicated, but mostly just nervous and giggled quite a bit. But this was the first day where we got to meet all of them, and we got to give them our little WMC pack, which included a hat, a water bottle, a reusable lunchbox, which was notable because every time we rocked up to class or to one of our field trips, they'd bring their nasi lemak in their newfound container, when usually they would bring it in either a plastic bag or a piece of paper. So they were very excited about that and to show us that they knew how to use it and they're ready to go. All right, so our first pillar is educate. So as we all know, education forms a very, very solid foundation for marine conservation, because without it, we wouldn't know what we're talking about and we wouldn't be able to form that connection with the ocean or with the sea. With these women, we made sure that we did weekly lectures and weekly field trips. So not only did we give them basic ecology and biology of our coral reef systems, but we also made sure that they were out in the area and being able to experience it themselves. Like I said before, a lot of these women said that they'd never swum before, never snorkeled before, and seeing them light up, seeing all of this was very inspiring. I had one woman say, "I didn't realize the rubbish was going into the water," when really all they did was throw the rubbish outside of their house. And they didn't realize it was going in the water, which I think for us is very eye-opening, because where else would it go? They were very, very brave. So they've gotten to the point where not only can they snorkel and do they have confidence in their ability in the water, that now some of them are SCUBA certified, which I think is amazing, because it's a very daunting experience if you're not used to the water. And then finally, they're now all trained to do coral watch surveys. They're able to monitor the reefs and understand and identify some of those species of coral that we've got out there as well. In this as well, we've also put the Bajo people, or the Bajo traditional knowledge, at the forefront of their education, and being able to have that collaboration with our fishermen is also extremely pivotal, because The fishermen are usually the ones to hold on to that traditional knowledge, and it's never really shared with the women. Now that it's shared with the women, it has a bigger opportunity to then move forward and be continued to be passed down through generations. Inspire. So Inspire is our second pillar. And honestly, I think the inspiration for the women had to have begun when they first met Hani Nusantari, the founder of JARI Foundation, who is an incredibly inspirational, dedicated soul that has done a lot in her lifetime. And she's more than happy to share her experiences with people around the world. So I think that's definitely where it started, and I think for a lot of us women in the room as well, it's very important for us to be surrounded by strong, independent women to be able to see that role model and move forward. They also shared their whys. So we did little interviews with our women out there, just trying to see their why and why they joined. And it was really great because we also got to share that on social media. So a lot of people in Australia or around the world have been able to watch their stories. But what has been most impactful is their sharing within their communities. So that's to inspiring their daughters, their mothers, their friends, their family to also get out into the ocean. One of our notable storytellers was Maria. She's very cute. She's a woman in marine conservation member. She's also a primary school teacher. When we first gave them their packs, we gave them a little book, and Maria would, without fail, every single time take it home, do a little diary, and then would be very stoked to share that with us the next day. So she's also shared this with her students and her friends and her family as well. Finally, our pillar is empower. So to kind of look at our empower pillar, I want to introduce you to Asi. Asi is only 22 years old, but she's one of the most bubbly, enthusiastic girls that I've ever met in my life. She is an enumerator for JARI Foundation, so she collects fisheries data. So she understands the importance of our ecosystems out there. She has fully committed herself to looking after the oceans and also being really engaged in our lessons. She's also recruited other women to join that WMC group, and you can already see that there's something happening within this space, which is quite cool. To close, I just wanted to say that this small initiative from a little locally owned NGO has been pivotal for this Poto Tano area, because without them, the destructive fishing practices, so the dynamite fishing, may still be going on. The safety of the fishermen and the women in the area who don't know how to swim or have never explored this area would never have been found. And these women would have never been able to explore the area as they have today. We're excited for what this means for the Poto Tano area and the coral reefs, of course. And we hope that if you take anything away from this talk today, it's just the inspiration that the work that's being done here in Australia with the resources and people power that we do have is actually going far and wide. So Coral Watch and all of the new technologies and foundings of all of our coral reefs here are actually going overseas and able to inspire smaller groups to be able to look after their own. I think there's been a really large focus on collaboration and a worldwide movement towards reef resilience. And so I just wanted to bring this to you today to say that everything does make a difference. And even if these little ladies are just doing a little bit every now and then, it's definitely helping with the resilience of our reefs worldwide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kimberly. Great, awesome, fourth time. We do have a question online. I haven't got my glasses, so would you mind reading that out?
Thank you for a good presentation, and this is from Naomi Gardner at JCU. Are there opportunities for some cross-cultural exchanges, meetups of women in JARI Foundation for the First Nations Women and Sea Country Groups?
That's a great question. I think it would be an amazing collaboration. I think in order for it to happen, we would need some pretty big funding. So I think, I really hope that is the case down the line. And I have seen there's quite a few women's groups that we've collaborated with or at least reached out to. But in order to tee up something like that, it would be some pretty big funding that we would have to find somewhere. But yeah.
Hi, Kimberly. Thanks for that. Yeah, I know a little bit about the Indonesian situation. It's great that you're there, working with women in particular. Also, just to look at the plastic situation, it's a big problem around the Indonesian islands. So you mentioned that, the cleanups on the beach. Was there any follow-up? And can there be some more follow-up with this group and other groups in Indonesia that you can see?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Patricia. So at the moment, we're just starting really small scale. So the idea of recycling and waste management in the Poto Tano area is still quite foreign. They have done a project with menstrual pads, and instead of single use, they have moved to fabric or reusable, which is also already one step. They've also gone into cleanups, which again, another foreign concept, because they didn't understand that this water was going into the ocean and it wasn't just disappearing. It was also the communication of the fact that burning rubbish is very destructive to people's health, and it's not as necessarily a good idea, and whilst it does disappear, it doesn't disappear in a very good way. But there is ongoing works to try and do small things to be able to inspire them to figure out what might be the next step. However, big recycling and waste management procedures or projects would be definitely something that we'd look at down the future.
Thank you. Any further questions from the room or online? It has been a really rich session. Thank you, Kimberly.